One to the second hearing of the Select Committee on the failure of the playing surfaces at Allianz Stadium. I also commence with the custom of this Parliament to acknowledge the traditional inhabitants of the land, the Gadigal people of Aurora Nation. I do that with all due respect. I also acknowledge other important contributors to the history of our Parliament, including those who built the building, very often working in a dangerous industry, and our parliamentary staff, particularly our committee staff here today, who support MPs and make our work and representative role possible. I acknowledge and thank them all. My name is Mark Latham and I'm the chair of the committee. I ask everyone in the room to please turn off their mobile phones to silent. Parliamentary privilege applies to witnesses in relation to the evidence they give today. However, it does not apply to what witnesses might say outside of the hearing. I urge witnesses to be careful about making comments to the media and to others after completing their evidence. In addition, the Legislative Council has adopted rules to provide procedural fairness for inquiry participants. I encourage committee members and witnesses to be mindful of these procedures. To each of the witnesses here today, Dave Dixon from Dixon Sand, Director thereof, and Jason Roberts, the Managing Director of Elite Sand and Soil, I thank you for making time to give your evidence, and also the patience as we've tried to coincide your evidence today with that of Kerry Mather from the Venues New South Wales. Witnesses have to be sworn in, where if you can please state your name, position, title and swear either an oath or affirmation according to the material that's sitting on the desk. Starting on my left with Dave Dixon, please.
Yes, name is David Dixon. I'm Managing Director of Dixon Sands. I solemnly and sincerely, truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. And Jason, the same?
I'm Jason Roberts, Managing Director of Elite Sand and Soil. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. And would either or both of you like to make a short opening statement, please, to the committee?
Yes, if you like, yeah. Oh, yes. So, good morning. My name again is David Dixon. I'm the Managing Director of Dixon Sand Proprietary Limited. I appear today to set the record straight in regards to the sand that I supplied Elite Sand and Soil for the 2022 Allianz Stadium project. I'm here to refute the claims that the sand was responsible for the drainage issues occurring at Allianz at the time, and I'm ready and willing to answer any questions in relation to this matter, including my submission. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jason?
My name's Jason Roberts, Managing Director of Elite Sand and Soil and also Elite Haulage. I'm here today to put the facts on the record and to clear my name and the reputation of my businesses, which I believe have been brought into disrepute in connection with the performance failure of the Allianz Stadium service, as mentioned in the media and this inquiry. The sand supplied by my business via Dixon Sands was compliant with the required specifications and was supported by testing undertaken at the quarry by Venues New South Wales consultants, together with the relevant documentation, which was then approved to be delivered into Allianz Stadium by Venues New South Wales. I want to make it clear that I do not accept that the sand supplied by my business was defective, non-compliant or responsible for the failure of the playing surface. The turf used on the surface had been affected by flooding prior to installation, and I understand that this condition was known to and signed off by Venues New South Wales prior to the turf being delivered and installed. I believe this is an important fact that must be properly considered when determining the reasons for subsequent performance of the service. I'm here today to provide the evidence and documentation relating to the material I supplied and to ensure that my business is not unfairly held responsible for a failure that, based on the evidence available to me, was not caused by the sand we supplied.
Thank you. Thanks for those statements, and again, thanks for your attendance today. We now go to questions around the committee table, and I might use the chair's prerogative to kick that off and ask, you're both here concerned about the way you were unfairly maligned at the initial hearing and some of the publicity about it. And can I just clarify, you're here to correct what you believe to be misrepresentations and also restore your commercial reputation. This has had some blowback on you commercially. If I can just get a reflection on that, please.
Yes, so from the initial, media release, as myself and Jason being probably the leading supplier of these materials throughout the industry, there's been significant issues in relation to the bad press that went on. I think that was August 2025. So we've lost business. Jason can probably detail that further. Throughout the industry, there's all sorts of innuendos being sent our way. And yeah, it is. We're here to defend what we put in there. We've got facts. We've got test results. My submission is quite clear in relation to test results that were collated by other independent consultants. And yeah, happy to discuss any issues. But it has been quite a war, I guess, defending our turf. And defending, pardon the pun, defending the product that we supply. I'm a family business. Jason's a family business. We've been in the industry since 1955, it's had significant impact. So yes.
Yeah, well, war's a very strong word. Mr. Roberts, would you like to?
Yeah, well, I just want to. My business has suffered. My credibility has been questioned through suppliers. I supply. I've been in the industry, I've had my business for the last 11 years, and I've supplied venues, surfaces and stadiums across the whole of New South Wales, golf courses, race courses. We go up into Brisbane and supply sands there from Dave Dixon's quarry in Sydney or Maroota. And it's the only field that we've ever had an issue with in all those years. And we've now been questioning whether our product is suitable to be installed on other projects.
So you're keen commercially to set out the truth as you understand it, and going to that substance, is it right to say that Elite Sand and Soil supplied the sand to Dixon Sand that then went to Allianz? That was
from Dixon Sand. Yes, correct.
Right. And where did which quarry did it originally come from?
From Maroota.
From Maroota. Okay.
Yep.
And Mr. Roberts, you made mention in your opening statement that venues had consultants testing the sand at your facility. Yep. That's the Maroota.
Or at Dixon Sand, which from the quarry. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So who were those consultants, and what did the testing show prior to being transported to Allianz?
The consultants were Sport Eng, and they met. We do individual stockpiles, so when they go out there, we put an individual stockpile and windrow the sand in. I think it was 1,000-ton lot. 500-ton lots. Yep. We put it in. They come out. They individually sample the test and go around the stockpile. Send them away to a laboratory. They get tested, and then once they go back to the consultant then approves it. When the first lot of testing that we done, it was stockpile 7 that was rejected, which we then sent back in and retested it, remade that stockpile, got it retested and signed off.
Right. What was wrong with stockpile 7?
The drainage rate was, I think.
The drainage rate had slipped. The criteria was for minimum 400 mils per hour using McIntyre-Jacobson methodology. So that particular stockpile had gone down into 300. I have it here. I think 330s. Yeah. Again, it highlights the scrutiny. Each pile was scrutinised. Each test result was scrutinised. And each stockpile was isolated in our quarry until it was approved by the consultant, and then it was put into a holding area and left there ready to load out when required.
Right. So 330 mils per hour is not a complete disaster, and by Allianz standards it's actually quite good. But it was still insufficient to reach the 400 benchmark.
The criteria for this particular
was excluded.
Yes.
So Sport Eng, were they acting on behalf of Venues New South Wales? They're being paid by them as the consultant?
I believe
so.
Right, you believe so.
They were designing the profile. And
yes. They weren't acting for John Holland or Infrastructure New South Wales?
They may have.
Right.
They may have.
Right. We need to ask them.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And they then certified, did they, that each of the sand piles transported to Allianz met the 400 benchmark?
Correct.
Right. So when the product left your facilities, you had an assurance from an independent source that it was the quality that was needed, and you didn't expect any problem from it.
Correct.
Right. Unfortunately, Sports Eng testing results weren't part of the Venues New South Wales submission to us, so we had to find that out from them independently. to your knowledge, who at Venues New South Wales knew of those SportEng results? Because John Holland said to us they passed them on to both Venues New South Wales and Infrastructure New South Wales, and Johnny Neofol and Lewis in particular, the curator, knew of the results that the sand was the quality that was needed. Is that your understanding of what then happened?
Well, we passed. Evergreen Evergreen is my customer.
Right.
Evergreen Turf. And then Evergreen Turf then says to us, we deliver it to the stadium, and then Evergreen Turf would then obviously pass it on to venues to say, that make sure that it all meets spec. But we're all in it together, and we obviously communicate with each other to make sure
it's a job lot.
Yeah.
And in your discussions with Evergreen, so they delivered both turf and sand. Did Evergreen ever raise with you potential issues, particularly concerning all the floods they'd had at Windsor? I mean, it was no public secret that Nepean had flooded badly, and there must have been silt. No, so they didn't say anything. So as far as you knew, their product was okay, your product was tested and certified, and you didn't expect any problems at Allianz?
Well, if there was any issues, surely they would have been brought up before they spread
Before
it
it
out,
left-
spread
before
it
it
out
left
and put it
the quarry
turf
and
over
your
the top.
facility.
Yeah.
When did you first get feedback from Venues New South Wales that there was a problem with your sand?
When I seen it released in the media, and I contacted Johnny Neofel from Venues New South Wales.
So this is last year?
Yep.
Right, 3 years after the opening of the facilities, the first time.
Oh, that was actually, sorry, I beg your pardon. The very first time when there was an issue with that sand was when SportEng, Jared from SportEng, had a meeting with us to say that the top profile of the sand, there was an issue with that, and then we had to do another blend to make it more coarse, so more free draining product to reinstall back on top of the existing
2024.
Yep.
Can I?
Right.
Can I
Yeah,
ask
Wes?
a couple- Thank you very much for coming and appearing today. Just in terms of chain of responsibility, I just want to understand where the contracts lie at this stage. So, Mr. Dixon, I'll say it at the base level of the responsibility chain. You supply to Mr. Roberts.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Roberts, you are contracted by Evergreen, in effect. Evergreen is the sand and turf supplier to John Holland, who is contracted by Infrastructure New South Wales to build the stadium, who then hand it over to Venues New South Wales. Is that a fair understanding of the chain of responsibility?
Yes.
Okay. So in those, with that in mind, I guess, you correct to say that in 2024 there was remediation work, and that was performed by John Holland. Is that correct? And you were engaged through Evergreen under a warranty, or?
No, there was no warranty. There was just they said there was an issue with the sand.
Okay.
But I don't know if that was John Holland or Venues, to be honest.
Okay. Who contracted you in terms of replacing that that top layer, that 100 mil?
Evergreen Turf.
Evergreen, and it was so for profit, like they paid you for that work?
Correct.
Okay, so there was no warranty claim in terms of that 100 mil layer that was replaced?
No.
No. And so Evergreen was effectively then presumably contracted by either John Holland or Venues New South Wales at that time to do that work. Do you know if they were paid for the work, or?
I don't know.
No, that's okay.
It's not something I'm pretty.
So your main contractor that you were servicing was happy to pay you for that initial work because they accepted that the original 2022 contract had been satisfied to the requirements, that so much so that when that 100 mil was replaced, they didn't seek to do it under warranty.
Correct.
Right. So now we fast forward to 2025, and the Premier stands up out the front of Allianz Stadium and says that it all has to be replaced, that there is silt that has permeated the sand layer, that there is a warranty claim at foot, and you weren't advised of any of this prior to the media announcement.
Was not contacted once.
Okay. We know that STRI, instead of SportEng, a different contractor was required by Venues New South Wales to conduct the testing in terms of the turf, will you ask for any input into that inquiry before they release their results to venues?
I was not contacted by anyone from Venues New South Wales or John Holland in regards to that. The first I knew about that was the media release, and then I rang Venues New South Wales, Johnny Nafel, and demanded a copy of the report from STRI because I believe it wasn't true.
Yep.
Can I just clarify? The media releases Chris Minz's statement that we're replacing the surface.
Well, the statement, the media release went into the papers.
There was a media release attached to when he did the...
When he
Right.
went out to the
I'm just
paper.
clarifying the media release you're
First
referring to is associated with the Premier's announcement that
Correct.
the surface needs to be totally replaced. The ground will be closed for several months, and that's how we...
And the sand was the issue.
And the sand was
the issue.
The sand was
Right.
contaminated
That was it.
from the beginning.
Okay, so you then contact Johnny Nafel and say, where's the evidence? Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
I want to see the report.
And how did he respond?
I'm not allowed to give you the report.
Right.
And then I've spoken to Philip Heads at Venues New South Wales about it, and the same thing, we can't give you the report. And I said, why? It's a public document. It should be a public document. You know, we should be able to defend our name because you're blaming us, bringing our, you know. And I said, well, if you don't, I'm taking legal action. I asked for a meeting. They wouldn't meet with us until I think it was a couple of weeks later that
September.
that they
met with us, yeah.
met with us to discuss it.
So when they replaced that entire surface and sand base later in 2025, who supplied that sand?
I did.
Right. Okay.
So you replaced the sand that they said was faulty from you.
Correct.
Did they pay you for that work?
Absolutely.
They didn't seek it under a warranty claim?
They
Who
couldn't.
was contracting you for that work?
Evergreen
Venues?
Turf. Evergreen Turf.
Evergreen Turf was contracting you again?
Well, no, I beg your pardon. Evergreen Turf.
No,
We were actually contracted. Originally, Evergreen Turf come to us, but then we said no. We want to deal with Venues direct.
Yes.
In regards to it, after the meeting, we had a meeting with Alistair. I don't know what Alistair's name
Miller.
is. Alistair Miller, and Johnny Nafel. In that meeting, we were told, and we asked them if we could work with them to try and fix it, and we were told we would not supply the sand again. In that meeting. Okay. After that meeting, David
This is in
and
September, 2025?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. After that meeting, David and I left, and we contacted STRI, who done the original report.
Yes.
And on our own accord, were contracting them to come to the quarry to do our testing for ourselves, to do the testing. When that happened, and Dave could probably touch on this, but I think
it was 2 weeks after we'd met with Johnny Nafel, Alistair and Adam. I'd said to them in the meeting, you guys will work out that we're the only ones that can do this. Alistair had said he'd been to
7 different
seven
quarries.
different quarries, even some in Victoria, looking for alternatives. So why would you look for alternatives? We're the only ones that can do it. 2 weeks after that, I'd engaged STRI because of this ASTM method that everyone's talking about, this testing methodology. So we'll come down and test my sand for me. They turned up, and a representative from Moston Copper had turned up, an uninvited guest to the quarry. So what are you doing here? He says, well, I've been told to come here by Venues. So I let them come in and just watch and witness the whole testing method, of which those samples were taken. And it was just a generic product that I was testing, not a specific product like an Allianz spec. They tested the sands. STRI said the sands were good and fine, and next minute Venues want to buy the sand off us again.
Right.
So, or buy it through Jason, through me, and so forth.
Did you say to them, it's a bit incongruous, a bit unusual, given you're blaming us for the original problem? Why do you want to
Well,
use
we never got an ear to them.
No?
But I did tell them that we were the only ones that could supply it, and they finally worked that out. So,
So STRI, and this, when you said it occurred in September, you had the September meeting with Johnny AFL,
Yep.
and 2 weeks later you had STRI come. So we're going to say it's late September, early October that
Yep.
testing occurred.
Yeah, we can pinpoint it. If we
Yeah.
want.
Now, in terms of the previous hearing that we had in relation to this inquiry, did you watch or read the transcript of the evidence that was provided?
Watched pretty much all of it. I think both of us did.
Yep.
Okay. You would be aware that STRI indicated that they were not aware at all of any of the previous testing that was done. Now, you've got results in front of you. I'm going to guess that you would have provided them a copy of the testing results of the original 2022 surface to indicate that, or clear your name. Did you give them a copy of those results?
I have discussed those results with Peter Anderson from STRI. He spent two and a half weeks
Yep.
at my quarry every day in the office. I've worked with Peter on another project as well, so I know. And Peter's quite a good agronomist, I must say. I believe, and I've read Peter's response to this inquiry, that he was furnished with copies of these from venues initially, but they weren't reviewed. So I believe these are the test results from the initial surface. I believe if Peter had read those test results, I don't believe that Peter would have written a report to say that the field was at 9% clay and silt from the beginning. It's an absolute impossibility, which I'd like to explain at some point. But
Yeah, and I'll give you that opportunity, but
Yes,
I just
thank
want to
you.
drill down, I guess. I'm working on the assumption now that it isn't the sand, and I've been sort of working on that assumption for a
You'd
while
be
because
correct.
I suspect
100%.
You'd be correct.
that the silt from the turf has leached into the sand. When they took the 100 mil off, they didn't take enough. That the clay had already been contaminated. Sorry, the clay had already contaminated the sand down as far as it had, and that was the issue. It was the turf, and that most likely it was Evergreen themselves that were the cause of the failure. That's the hypothesis I'm working on. So I'm now just diving into the weeds as to who knew what when. So, given that the report was written, and obviously we've seen that report from STRI, but we then had STRI provide evidence to this committee in February, I think it was this year, which was well post the replacement and all of the testing that occurred. You saw that evidence, but in the intermediary time, you would have provided him the results. Yet he still claimed, in effect, it was the sand. Do you believe that he was clear when discussing with you and observing the evidence that you provided to him, that he was clear that it was not the sand that was at fault for that failure?
I've never had that brutal discussion, I guess, with Peter. I didn't want to put Peter in an uncomfortable position, but I have discussed the results with Peter. I have discussed the fact that there was average of 3% clay and silt when the material went in, and I've discussed with Peter the impossibility that could migrate to a 9%. So I didn't drill down on the detail, and when Peter came out to my office, I said, listen, I'm not here to talk about the Allianz stuff. You're here to do a job, and I don't wish to make it uncomfortable for both of us, and that's the truth.
Yep.
So I didn't provide Peter with a copy of those, but I'm pretty sure that by now he's read them.
Okay.
Okay. Can we just
sorry,
get
yes.
the explanation from Mr. Dixon? You mentioned earlier your full explanation of what you believe really happened at Allianz, and then we'll go to questions from the Deputy Chair.
Okay,
and,
I'm not an agronomist. I don't know turf and I
Emily
don't know
Savard.
maintenance processes, but I do know sand quite well. I deal with all the different consultants that work in the industry and so forth. So I do this on a daily basis. So look, the material that was supplied from the test results that were received was an average of 3% clay and silt that went into Allianz Stadium. There was no question of that. A wet sieve analysis test is what they utilise to achieve that result. It is a true and accurate and ultimate test to determine the clay content and silt content in a material. Once that's achieved, the material does not break down. It's 290 million years old, sitting in Maruda. It doesn't turn up at Allianz Stadium and suddenly break down. It's and we have test results. I don't want to dive too much into that, but we have test results that can verify that. So if it was landed there at 3% clay and silt, it's at 3% clay and silt. If at some point in that profile it's reporting at 9% clay and silt, that is an external source of clay and silt. The original product does not break down. I refer in my statement, my submission, that I have individual test results from 2004, 2005, the bottom 100 mil profile, which was tested by, I wasn't even aware of these tests until I started to do some homework, but those tests by Greenspace
24
and 25, Greenspace 4D did a report, which I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but they did a full report
We've
at
seen
the request of
references to
venues,
Greenspace,
and there was Sport Engine done some report. They'd both taken samples off the field, the bottom 100 mil profile, which tested up nearly exactly as it was put in the day it was put in. And those were independent test results. They're in my submission. 3 years later, sitting in that field. Any contamination occurred from the top down. That's why in 2024 there was a 100 mil replacement of the top, because it was incrementally contaminated from the top of that first 100 mil down. That's why they only stripped out 100 mil and left the parent material underneath. It was as the day it was put in.
Thank you. John Ruddock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here, gentlemen. So we've heard a lot about the sample testing, and that's talking about what the composition of the sand profile is. But there is another test, which is the petrographic testing. Now that tells us what the origin of this particular sample is. So could you just that sounds very interesting.
Yes.
Could you just walk us through the science of that, or like?
Yeah.
So if we go and get a sample now and put it through this petrographic test, it can tell us, well, that came from this part of New South Wales or South Australia.
Okay. Yes. So a petrographic analysis test is a very precise test. So I believe, and I mentioned this to Johnny Nayafeld and Alice. Is it Alice Mill?
Yeah, in the meeting
that
we had.
you could get a sample, do one petrographic analysis test. What it does, apart from the particle size distribution, it takes the clay and silt content and further breaks that down to an absolute and accurate detail. For instance, there's 6 different types of clays that are present in my sand. So of those clays, it will tell you each micro percentage and the exact type of clay. So if there is a conjecture in relation to this Allianz Stadium, for instance, and they thought that there may be some silts that have gone from a river or come from a river, a petrographic analysis test will tell you that detail. It will tell you exact percentage of the fine clays and silts that are clays, iolite clays, kaolinite clays, every different type of every component that makes up that 3 or 9%, whichever side of the fence you're on.
So it's not telling us the geographic or origin. It's telling us where it's coming
It
from.
would tell you whether
river
it's a silt that occurs perhaps in a river.
Right, and what did it say?
Well, we never did one.
They never did one.
I wasn't allowed to get, I asked to get access to the field. We were granted access to the field. We got to Driver Avenue and access was denied.
And you were seeking access to
I was
conduct
seeking
a
access to
petrographic
look
test.
Okay, so, peel it back a bit. We've never seen any reports. We were never told of the issues that were mounting behind the scenes. We were never given access to any reports. We went down with the intention to try to help and assist Venues New South Wales and bring our knowledge of the sand, which is unequal to most consultants. Considering we provided the material initially and our working relationship over the last 10 to 15 years with Venues, we thought that we would go down with a level of assistance. I mentioned a petrographic analysis test would solve all the issues. It would tell us exactly what it is.
That's right.
And we asked to get access to the field because I was quite
Did
prepared.
Venues know that you were coming?
Yes, we were actually given approval to come down.
Right. Who gave that approval?
I think it was either Johnny Nayafeld or Philip Heads.
Right,
It was either one of those two. But we were given approval. We arrived down here.
What date would this be that you arrived at Driver Avenue?
It was within 2 weeks of the September meeting.
Yes,
So.
so late September, maybe early October, but I think it was late September. Okay, and then we were given approval. What time we get down here, no problems. We arrived here on Driver Avenue, and when we got out of the car, I got a phone call from Moston Copper and said, we're not allowed to let you in. And I said, why? And they said, because our legal team said no. I said, okay.
The legal team.
That's what they were told us.
Interesting. Murkier and murkier.
Now, do you think that they knew that you were, one of the things you were hoping to do was the petrographic test?
I said we'd told them
told
in the meeting
Right.
that there's a petrographic analysis test. We'd actually brought the consultant and had told them that we're bringing a consultant
I see.
to sample the material
Right.
because he is accredited to
Independently.
sample and he's an independent consultant. It was actually from SportEng, which they'd been
Right.
using. So it's one of their consultants. And we'd said that we're going to bring him and we'll stand back and he can sample the material in the correct manner so that there's no conjecture about the, was it sampled incorrectly? And yes, we were going to, in the order to help.
Yeah.
But at that time it sort of turned around to, well, we're now going in
Right.
probably protection mode here. But but we got all the way to Driver Avenue and basically...
They were waiting for you at Driver Avenue and said, we've changed our mind, no entry, no testing.
Well, that's,
We got to Driver Avenue and then we went to ring and we got a phone call to say no.
Right, I
You
got a
can't
phone
come
call,
in.
right, okay.
Yep.
And what was your reaction
I was
to that?
gobsmacked, to be honest.
Right.
Gobsmacked.
So,
Because all we wanted to do is try and get to the bottom of the issues and try and work out and help. But
are we past the point of no return now to conduct a petrographic analysis, or there's simply no sample that
there
exists
needs to be a sample.
and that doesn't
And-
exist?
Well, I don't have any. We were never allowed, so I don't know
Yeah.
if there is a sample
I'll-
of the material. And you would have to assure that the sample was from the top profile of the sand.
Yeah.
There's no use testing something that's not got anything in it.
Yeah.
But yes, and I also believe in 2024, I have spoke with a consultant who also recommended to venues in 2024 to do a petrographic analysis test. And it's not something that's in the sports field industry suite of tests. It's normally something from a construction industry.
Okay.
However, it's very specific and very detailed. And yes, it would give you the answers that I think that everyone's seeking.
Okay, well that's very helpful, thank you. Now you did mention, Mr. Dixon, that the first you heard, or it might have been you, Mr. Roberts, you mentioned that the first you heard that the sand was being blamed was where you heard it in the media, and that Premier Minns had sort of reached that conclusion quite quickly. How did the Premier, were people talking about this on TV? How do you suspect that the Premier came to that quite rapid conclusion that was the culprit?
Well, I from what I understand is that STRI test was...
their report that come out has basically
yeah.
said that the sand was the issue.
I see.
And they'd said that sand was issue because they said they tested the whole profile and it was 9% clays and silts, that it must have been in there from the beginning. This is what I understand. And then they've passed, I believe venues had passed it on and that it ended up with the minister and then it was out in the media.
I see.
By a release, but...
Okay.
Emily Savall.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you to you both for coming in and appearing today. My first question is to Mr. Dixon. I think you've explained to the best of, I suppose, your knowledge and understanding why the stadium was flooding during 2024 and early 2025 football seasons. But could you explain to the committee why Allianz was still flooding after the 2025 renovation, where they removed that 100 millimetre drainage layer and replaced it with PGA sand?
Look, I don't know why. Like I said, I'm not an agronomist. I'm not someone that understands the machinations of turf and so forth. I'm involved with the sand. But in lay terms, I would make an explanation. And I listened to Adam Lewis's evidence and the difference between drainage and infiltration. So infiltration is the ability of the water to penetrate the surface, and then drainage is once it's through there and its permeability through that. From a lay perspective, we had 10 mil of rain, and the sand component begins at the 60 mil profile. So you've got 60 mil of turf, and then you've got the sand from 60 mil to the 250. If you have 10 mil of rain, and the 10 mil of rain sits on the surface and makes that surface unplayable, how is that impacted by the sand? Good point.
Okay.
And if you have another event, a second rate event, which I think was 23 mil, and the sand starts at the 60 mil, and again it was unplayable. How is that got anything to do with the sand profile?
So in terms of the stadium, could you explain for us why the stadium has not flooded or had draining issues since the complete rebuild?
Well, I don't know, but I have test results to show that the sand that went in from 2022 is nearly exactly the same as the sand that went in 2025.
Okay.
Considering I made the sand, I have all my internal test results. And I actually have an external test result from a sample that was taken from the field in 2025, which was also tested to ASTM method,
Okay.
which was exactly the same as the new high drain sand that's now suddenly working really well.
And in terms of the fields, the SCG, which is next door to Allianz,
Correct.
has not had any drainage issues. It's maintained by the same turf team who
Yep.
use the same practices
Yep.
and methodology. Can you explain why that is the case?
Again, I don't know about the turf, but I supplied the sand at the SCG, and I have been for the last 19 years.
Yep.
I can tell you that the sand profile on the SCG was tested to McIntyre-Jacobson method
Yep.
and drains at about 300 to 320. So it's about 200 millimetres less than the material that went on to Allianz Stadium. So why does it drain? I make about 150 to 200,000 tonnes of this material a year, which I sell every tonne through Jason. The most material in Sydney is sitting between about 200 to 300 mil, which is the recommendations
Yep.
in relation to USGA material. So I don't know why.
In terms of the evidence that we've heard from both STRI and
Yep.
SportEng to
Yep.
this committee, do you agree with that evidence that it is implausible that flood-affected turf could have caused the post-installation contamination of the Allianz Stadium draining material?
I'm going to take a point of order there. I'm not sure that SportEng's evidence suggested that.
Well, you can make that point subsequently, and I've got doubts too that there's been no complaints at the SCG, but I'll raise that in my question.
Well, yeah. If I can touch on that, the
Sure.
night of the issue when the flooding was at Allianz, they had the same amount of rain, if not more, at Brookvale Oval, which is Brookvale Oval. We supplied the exact same sand,
yeah.
and it's the same profile.
Yeah.
It had no issues there. And then also, Venues New South Wales employees were also looked at the SCG on the night of that, and there was no flooding on that surface at the same night.
So
Yeah, if
you
I can just
disagree?
intervene and say that there's media reports from the SCG in the Swans versus Western Bulldogs game in 2025 that the players were slipping excessively. John Longmire described the surface as unsafe, particularly at the northern end of the game. So, but we'll clarify that in our final report.
So do you agree with their evidence that it was implausible that post-installation contamination occurred?
There is evidence that there is contamination of silt, and I think that was open from the very beginning. I think Graham Collis from Evergreen had indicated that the turf was silt contaminated, and that was agreed to be used on the field.
He notified Venues New South Wales that the turf was contaminated and had been from flood.
Yeah. Their evidence, I suppose, to the committee is that it is not possible for the turf to have caused the drainage issues. But I suppose your evidence is that it's not possible for the sand to have caused the drainage issues, is what sort of what I'm
The
hearing.
silt had to come from somewhere. It didn't come from the sand. There are test results ad nauseum to indicate that off different profiles. The reasoning for the 100 mil change-out profile in 2024, as I sat in my office with all players in my head office with Jarrison SportEng, that the top 100 mil incrementally was saturated with silts. The report, and I believe the conclusion in report of green space 4D indicated that there was saturation of silts coming from an external source. I also understand, and I since obviously this is all opened up, that there was multiple layers of turf that went down. There wasn't just one. Every year that turf was changed and changed and changed. And if there was silt, of which Graham admitted there was, and was quite open and honest, there was flood affected turf, that would compound and compound and compound, and you could keep removing the top 100 mil, but if you keep putting perhaps a contaminated material on top.
Could I just ask, is it true that they only replaced the sand in the rebuild at the end of last year?
Yes.
Right.
They went down to the gravel carpet layer
Yes.
and replaced the sand.
But prior to that, they were replacing the top level of turf, but you weren't supplying new sand to the venue.
Only
that once where the
Right.
top 100 that's the only time. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, Emma.
No, that's fine, Chair. That's an important clarification. You agree, though, that this committee has heard from experts like STRI and SportEng that are turf experts?
Yep.
And you are not turf experts?
I'm not a turf expert.
Okay. Can you produce sand that meets the ATSM F1 815-11 specification?
The ASTM is a methodology. It's not.
That's not
ATSM.
yeah.
ATSM.
So it's a methodology. It's not a spec.
Spec. That's right.
Okay. So in terms of the sand that you produce, why did the sand that was supplied in 2022 not meet that?
It was never asked for.
It's a methodology. It's not a specification.
That
People are getting confused. So ASTM is a method of testing permeability of sand. No one uses it.
The Minister's staff probably should do some research before they send you the questions, Emily.
No, come on, that's out of order.
And can I just touch on that?
Sure.
In all the years we've been doing this,
Yeah.
the very first time we knew about that test result was when STRI was brought in. Never, and still to this day, we have never been asked for that method of testing. It's actually not a Australian standard.
Can I touch on that? ASTM is a methodology to test the permeability, as is McIntyre-Jacobson.
Yeah.
Of the millions of tonnes that I've sold, and including to all venues, never have we been asked an ASTM methodology.
Okay.
Right.
ASTM is known throughout the industry as more inaccurate. It's fluctuations. So if you had 10 tests of the same product and you got tested it to McIntyre-Jacobson, you get a far more level result, as opposed to you'll get with the ASTM. It's very up and down.
Okay.
It's only a methodology.
Okay.
If you look at my submission, you'll have a correlation of the same test result to ASTM and to McIntyre-Jacobson. They're quite similar. Never in once of any of venues or any of the golf courses or racetracks, everything is done by McIntyre-Jacobson.
Yep.
And that's throughout Australia, not just... And it's an
One
international...
more, Emily, and then we'll go to Greg.
Not a problem at all. Elite Sand and Soil. So you now, Mr. Roberts, you supplied the sand and drainage material that was provided by Dixon Quarries. That material failed. Do you accept that?
No. Definitely not.
Okay.
If it failed, why did it leave the quarry? Why was it signed off to leave the quarry?
Well, the field flooded. I think that's not a disputed technical finding.
The turf flooded.
It's
Correct.
not a finding at
The
all.
water, if you go back, the water didn't get through the turf layer. It stayed on top. Water filters through the sand profile. The sand profile is 300 mil, okay? The water sheeted on top. It didn't get through the turf.
Yeah, I suppose that the problem we've got is that whatever certificates or sign-off you point from 2022, none of them can explain away the footage that we all saw of a
But it was
professional
fine for 2
stadium
years.
underwater.
But it was fine for 2 years.
The first 2 years, they had rain events of 40, 50, 60 mil,
and
and there was not an issue with the field.
Yeah.
So
until it
maybe,
wasn't.
So
maintenance practices.
then after 2 years, you have a 10 mil rain event, and there's an issue in the field. If the field, according to STRI, was clogged from the day it was put in, it would never have worked from the day it was put in.
Correct.
The report is flawed in so many ways. I'd love to get my hands on that report.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Greg.
There's two questions.
Mr. Donnelly.
Gentlemen, it's very clear that from the point of view you feel very aggrieved about the way in which this matter has played out and the imputations made with respect to the provision of these key aspects of the returfing of the stadium. Can I just invite you, if I could, just to put that aside, that grievance, not easy to be done, but just put it to the side. A couple of questions now to follow. Given your expertise, and I do understand that that you're not turf specialist but sand specialist, are you aware of examples from your knowledge either in Australia or overseas where this matter of flooding of surfaces has taken place? It seems to me, I mean, we're looking at obviously an event here in Sydney and we're trying to get to the very bottom of it. But just in terms of this general proposition of flooding of turf, are you aware of sort of research that's been done or sort of examples that at least might help inform us about this issue of flooding of turf and its relationship with sand? Just as a general proposition.
I've got photos that I can deliver to the later, but on my phone, from the exact same sand profile that we built sports field out at St Mary's Stadium. A rain event that flooded the field, and the only reason it was flooding because of the main water line couldn't get out quick enough. It went exact same profile, 100mm gravel carpet layer, sand, same turf, but it didn't have ready to play or instant play in the profile. And then 45 minutes later, it drained, and they played another rugby league game on it.
Right, if you can take that on notice and supply it later on as evidence to the committee.
In going back into that...
Yeah, that's not my... What I'm trying to do is, I suppose, point us in the direction, if you can, of this, dare I say, the sort of science behind the relationship between turf and sand and this effect of flooding, of high rain events. In other words, clearly this is a very specialist area. Clearly there is detailed, dare I say, almost academic papers or certainly technical papers about this issue of flooding surfaces and sand. I suppose what I'm trying to understand, because what we've been bogged down with, and I don't say bogged down with disrespectfully, is a very specific matter which you're clearly aggrieved about because of the corporate reputation, the impact on you, and I accept that. But the actual matter of flooding of surfaces and sand, there must be expert work done in this area around the world. I mean, this is obviously, this issue of surface and sand has been around obviously a very long period of time. Matters to do with increasing professionalism of sports and the real impact of having, dare I say, inadequate surfaces or surfaces not fit for the task at hand. Understood. But there must be some pretty serious science.
Well, there is.
Yeah. So where do you point us to in terms of that?
Well, to get a profile, there is scientific evidence that we have to, or scientific that we send the sander and we send the gravel together to a lab.
Yep.
That then gives you a depth of what your profile needs to be at. So that's all scientific. The drainage factor. That's all part and parcel.
Yep.
And then obviously the turf goes in, but there's a number of things that can be involved. Maintenance practices.
Yeah. I'll move on.
I'm not being disrespectful. What you're referring to is
I'm not being disrespectful.
No.
I'm not being disrespectful.
There was a USGA document. There was the USGA document.
Yes.
Yes, I think what you're referring to, which is
sorry, I'm not referring to any document. I'm trying to understand the research behind, given the stakes are so high.
Yes.
And once again, please, can we just set this example aside? And I do understand your grievance about the treatment. But the issue of the flooding of surfaces, the inability of the matter of water passing through the grass and through the sand, this has obviously been studied uphill and down dales around the world. Now, we've been very focused on this event and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. I'm trying to go beyond that and say, where is the peak source of knowledge and information about this matter?
It's the USGA document.
Okay, that's so. Thank you.
If you go to
that's what I was wanting to get to.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
No, sorry, just one more.
One more from Greg. Yep.
Okay, one more. once again, the issue of grievance, I understand, but can I just make this statement? And I make this without technical knowledge, but just a hypothesis or possibility. With respect to the cumulative effect of silt working its way through onto and then penetrating sand over a period of time. And let's assume that that can happen with changes of grass surfaces, that the silt makes its way down bit by bit through it. Is it likely to be the case that at some point in time, and I accept that you're not experts in grass or turf, that there is a point in time where the cumulative effect has taken place bit by bit and it's penetrated into the sand, but there's got to be a point where, or a time that, it's like it's a pivot point, or it's the point of no return. In other words, it's built and built and built up.
And the question, Greg?
Well, please let me finish. That then it just requires a single event of reasonably heavy rain, or whatever the case may be, and then the flooding takes place. So it builds up, and then bang, there's an event, and therefore, if that's a hypothesis, it may be the case that the matter before us, it could have a long tail to it that's got us to this point, as opposed to the actual the changing of the turf, as a hypothesis.
Yeah, in response to that, every sports field has a lifespan. Every sports field that you put in,
yeah,
every profile has a lifespan.
Yeah.
And you've got all factors from silt, dust, from humus, from the mowing, that is slowly blocking your profile, yes, to the point that, yes, there's the lifespan, it's over, replace. So management and maintenance is to use all the tricks of the trade to aerate it,
keep it
increase
permeable,
it.
yep.
Yes. So generally, you're getting about 15 years out of a sports field before you need to pull it out and replace it. So the whole idea of the 2 years is way premature. But there is a tipping point, correct?
No, that's fine.
Yep.
I was wanting to understand that.
Yep.
Chair,
Yep.
do you mind
Thank
if
you. No, well, I've just got a few final ones, and then the closing time will be allocated to Wes Fang. Could I, well, I think we've distributed the questions pretty fairly, and thank you, Ms. Saval. Could I just ask a layperson's question, because one of our struggles is we're not agronomists, we're humble servants of the people as members of Parliament, and we're grappling with the key issue of where did the silt come from? And there's compelling evidence to say that the Windsor Evergreen Turf Farm in 21 and 22 was subject to multiple floods. Anyone who lived near the Nepean River at that time, as I did, would know that the flooding was horrendous, and we've got evidence of the Windsor Farms flooding 4, 5, 6 metres under. The turf is grown on top of plastic matting. It's very hard for any silt that settles to disappear underneath that matting, and indeed it's impossible. So that's the Evergreen story we know from those flood events. At your quarries and facilities, did you have any flood experiences, any silting events that could explain the venue's hypothesis that the silt was in your product?
We're near the highest point in metropolitan Sydney, above 200 metres above sea level, so no.
No, not possible at all.
Impossible.
Just did not happen.
And
Noah's Ark stuff.
No, and after and in regards to, I think one of the who it was from venues that questioned that it may have been contaminated from the quarry to the site. Alistair questioned it could have been contaminated. Our processes are, and we have it all on camera at the quarry, when the drivers come in, they wash their truck out every load.
Right.
So even though they're going from the quarry to Maroota to here and back without doing it, they still wash their loads out.
Okay.
So there cannot be any contamination.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, that's very helpful. And my final point, we have rules in the upper house about procedural fairness, and you've mentioned your commercial disadvantage concerns. In his opening statement here on the 20th of February, David Gallop, the chair of Venues New South Wales, put it out plainly, and I'm just seeking your response in all fairness to what he had to say. He's supposed to be an experienced sports administrator, and he tried to speak with authority. He said that it's clear evidence from our independent root and branch review, as well as the timeline of drainage issues at Allianz Stadium, the problem sat deeper. In short, a subsurface sand layer sand layer installed during the stadium's construction failed to perform to expectations. It contained levels of silt and clay that slowed water movements, meaning that during heavy rain, water did not drain enough. That resulted in the pooling on the surface that we saw at various matches. So your response to that very strong statement from the Chair of Venues New South Wales?
I'd like to say more like a rotting compost than a roots and branches.
Okay. You believe that statement to be totally false?
100%.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well,
it's absurd.
The evidence is that Evergreen's already told Venues New South Wales that the turf was fully flood affected.
Yeah, it's a serious matter because Mr. Gallop was sworn into evidence, and we'll deal with that as a committee in the future. But I've just got your response in terms of procedural
And I think
fairness.
at the time that evidence was put down, I think the new playing surface was falling apart from the turf that was
they brought it up
from
from Pakenham Evergreen, and
at
it
the same
had
time, this
some
gentleman's up
virus
there
in it.
saying we have a world-class facility, and
grass
they
virus.
did all their homework and got the turf out
Chair, I've got
of...
some very important questions. I need to
Yep,
get through.
sure. Yeah, Mr. Fang,
Sorry.
don't be in too much of a panic. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I just know I've got very little time left.
No,
now
no,
I want
we
to.
can go a little bit over time. but,
Okay, well
you
that's
know,
that
some
that
flexibility.
that pleases me.
So away you go.
So, Mr. Donnelly asked you about the tipping point. Now, in terms of the silt permeating the sand, as he asked you, obviously that silt would have to come from somewhere.
Point of order from Mr. Donnelly.
I asked for an explanation about, in their professional opinion, could they explain whether or not there is this point where... So I didn't say there was a tipping point. I was genuinely seeking... No, well...
Whatever.
That-
Okay,
well,
that's fine.
Okay,
Take your point
to
of
rule
order.
on the
I
point
did
of
read.
order, best Mr. Fang, if you don't reflect on previous questions and just ask your own.
Sure.
Please.
In terms of if there is a tipping point, not related to any question that was asked today, that silt would have to have come somewhere to permeate the sand because it didn't produce its own silt, did it? Right, thank you. In terms of other questions that may have been asked or not asked today, in terms of the two specialist reports that we've had and the evidence that's been provided to this committee from SportEng and also STRI, did you happen to copy or read the STRI transcript where I questioned them about their knowledge of what happened in 2022 versus the documents that were provided later?
No.
Okay. Well, I happened to ask Mr. Anderson and Mr. Moyet about whether they had been provided the documents from 2022, which had indicated that there was a silt-affected turf.
Yes.
They weren't aware that there was silt-affected turf in 2022. I asked them, did they believe that if they had been told that they may have come to a different conclusion, and they indicated that that was correct. So do you believe that had they been provided all the evidence, they may have come to a different conclusion?
100%.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If they'd been provided... I understand they were provided, in particular, this detailed report or detailed results of the initial sand.
Yes.
And I think that if they saw that, in particular Pete Anderson saw that and saw the clay...
But they also weren't provided evidence that the silt
correct,
had actually been visible in the turf when it was laid. And I asked them whether that would potentially have changed their view about where the contamination came from. Noting that you did seek a meeting with Mr. Nerthal about the matter, and that he instructed, in effect, that no testing would occur when you turned up at Driver Avenue after having pre-arranged that testing. Did it surprise you when you heard that he was a referee for Evergreen Turf?
Not really. I mean, I've done business with Johnny, and I've dealt with Venues New South Wales for the last 10 years. But yeah, I don't know why that's part of Evergreen's referral, but it's got nothing to do with this.
So at the moment, it's clear that we had silt from somewhere. We know that the turf was silt affected. We know that it was visible when they laid the turf. You've come to do testing after you've been blamed for effectively the drainage failures, and the person that has stopped you is actually a referee for the turf company. Does that
Well-
not provide? Does that not provide some perhaps
Conspiracy theory. Point of order.
issue?
I think
To
it
be
was the
I'll
solicitor.
deal with the point of order by asking Wes to get to his question.
Yeah, to be honest with you,
Wasn't
I'll
the
answer that.
solicitor-
To be honest with
Okay.
you, it wasn't actually Johnny Nafel who said that we couldn't come in here. It was from Moston Copper. We got the phone call because we were to meet Moston Copper to come in because they were also a consultant, another consultant.
They're consultants to the rebuild of the service.
Correct. Yes.
Well, I suspect we've got somebody coming in that might be able to answer that for us.
Do we? Okay. Further questions, Mr. Fang?
No, I'm good. That was what I wanted to cover off.
Any other questions from committee
I'm
members,
happy to put
Mr.
them on
Ruddock?
notice.
Yeah, we've got someone.
Just the last one, just following up with Mr. Latham was saying. So I had heard that there was possibly silt contamination in your quarry, but you're saying your quarry is 200 metres above sea level, so flooding is not an issue at your quarry. That's just not accurate in any way.
No, it's not accurate in any way, and by any means, there's the material. There's the 11
Right.
test results on the material that are 500
So your
tonnes back.
sworn evidence is if you flood, they're bringing them in 2 by 2.
100%. Noah's Ark stuff.
And Adam Lewis would know that. He's been to the quarry. We've brought him out there. We've asked venues New South Wales to come out and visit. We're open. It's an open book. So
Can I suggest, we're doing Penrith Stadium at the moment.
Oh,
yes. So
but
you know.
Up the wires.
didn't
No.
So yeah. So I mean, you know, we're here to clear our name to make sure to say it is not the sand is the issue. Okay. We've replaced the sand. We've done, like I said further earlier, we do hundreds of thousands of tons of sand. My issue, and it's an issue in the industry, is that people say they're using a certain spec of sand. It's non-spec materials. There's an inquiry in the Orange Council. Okay, that is another issue. A bigger issue in the industry that people are using non-compliant materials that are stating it is compliant. And when that's not us, we do it. We keep going. We supply a numerous amount of fields. Never once have we had an issue. Not once until Allianz Stadium. And I can honestly say there'd be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tons of sand that we've supplied to the spec of what's required.
We do about 150 to 200,000 tonnes a year of this material and have done for the last 25 years. This is not our first rodeo.
Yep. Well, thank you for your time and contribution today, which has been very useful. And I'm particularly glad the committee's afforded you a right of reply.
Thank you.
Given what was said and presented at our first hearing. This is our final hearing, so we'll be making deliberations about the evidence that's been presented to us as best we can and recommendations about this particular issue subject of our inquiry. So thank you again, and I wish you all the very best with your commercial ventures. We support businesses in New South Wales. We want them to succeed, and hopefully today it's been useful for you as well.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. We might just have a short toilet break for committee members. In the hearing, and thank Kerry Mather for attending, the CEO of Venues New South Wales. And Kerry, you don't need to be sworn in because your second appearance here, and I thank you for making the time for that, because we've asked for your evidence following all the other material that the committee has received, including the evidence that was just heard from Dixon Sand and also Elite Sand and Soil, and all the testing materials and evidence before the committee. So I don't know how aware you are of what's been said earlier today or in other submissions that have been made, but if you'd like to make an opening statement, that's available to you.
I would. Thank you very much, Chair. I am pleased to be appearing today before our new Chairman and committee members and continue our extensive engagement with this inquiry, which has included a 5,000-word submission to provide the committee with an understanding of our operations and how we prepare our fields at our stadiums, responding to a Standing Order 52 during 2025 and releasing 622 documents relating to turf management and procurement, with the majority of those, 477, deemed non-privileged or public, responding to over 120 questions on notice on Allianz Stadium drainage, inviting and hosting the committee at Allianz Stadium during the remediation process in late 2025, appearing at the 20 February hearing along with our Chairman, General Manager of Safety, Security and Facilities and Head Curator, answering supplementary questions and questions on notice arising from that appearance, and answering related questions at March budget estimates and supplementary questions that followed. Throughout, we've been open and transparent, responding to the best of our knowledge at the time to ensure this committee was well informed. As a government agency, we've been proactive and responsive to the drainage issue itself, and we've also been constructively responsive to the Legislative Council's interest in Allianz Stadium. My colleagues and I are immensely proud of our 170 years of history, experience and traditions at Venues New South Wales. The continued preparation of our sporting fields and venues and delivery of live experiences, all to the highest standard for our partners and the people of New South Wales, is a significant responsibility and one that we are proud to deliver. It's a complex area, as each of our stadiums are home to multiple home teams, multiple codes and various forms of entertainment on a year-round basis. Our stadiums don't have the luxury of hosting just one home team or single code. But today I'm pleased to have the opportunity to address some specific matters that were raised during the inquiry or subsequently, and provide some further information and clarifications, and also discuss the key learnings. The drainage issue first emerged in mid-2024, 2 years after the stadium was handed over to Venues New South Wales ready to operate. Immediately, we requested that the builder's expert and field of play designer Sporting investigate. To correct the drainage problem, Sporting recommended on 27 September 2024 the removal of the top 100 mils of drainage layer of turf and some of the sand. Those remedial works were carried out in October, and Sporting prepared a handover report noting satisfactory completion in November 24. However, the problem reoccurred the following May at the Women's State of Origin. So this time, in May 25, Venues New South Wales directly engaged a leading global independent expert, the Sports Turf Research Institute, or STRI, to conduct a comprehensive independent investigation into the field of play, the entire drainage system, groundwater conditions, the maintenance regimen, and any other relevant factors. They were provided with over 500 documents, including all material from the original design through to the May 25 drainage failure to conduct their investigations. Their findings in July 2025 were that, firstly, the sand drainage layer below the turf was contaminated with up to 9% of clay and fine silt, when it should have been a maximum of 2%, and this severely reduced drainage rates to about 40 millimetres per hour when the field should drain at 300 to 600 millimetres per hour. Secondly, the problem was traced to the time prior to the stadium's handover to Venues New South Wales. And thirdly, STRI concluded that the turf itself had not failed. The high levels of silt and clay present in the sand drainage layer compacted over time and caused the problem. We don't know how or at what stage it got there, but it was there in such high concentrations, STRI confirmed it was present prior to stadium handover to Venues New South Wales. STRI's review determined based on information and test results supplied by the builder at the time of their 2025 investigation, that the incorrect testing was used on the original sand, which made it appear that the sand drained satisfactorily. There was also no evidence the sand was retested with the correct test at the time when turf was laid, which is a critical step given the time which had passed since installation, providing a further window for contamination to occur. If the correct and specified testing method had been used per the project brief requirements, the sand's inadequate drainage capacity would have been identified. STRI's recommended solution to the problem was to remove all the sand and replace it with new uncontaminated sand that was tested with the correct method as required in the project brief and at multiple points during manufacture, delivery and installation. That meant the turf also had to be removed and replaced to facilitate the removal of the sand. This time the rectification was conducted on the advice of and with the full oversight of independent expert STRI. It was a rigorous and very detailed process from the scoping, specification and detailed programming, which included 13 hold points for detailed inspection and testing by experts from sand production through to delivery. Over 4,247 tonnes of new root zone sand material was delivered to the stadium in 105 trucks and dog trailers over 98 days, with each truck observed and inspected at the quarry and Allianz Stadium prior to it loading and unloading. Works were completed in January 2026. Within days, it was clear to Venues New South Wales and STRI that some of the turf was compromised due to the impact of extreme temperatures on the day of harvest and transport. We required significantly larger areas to be removed than those directly affected to ensure the most consistent presentation in colour and without obvious joins. The turf was replaced by the supplier at their cost. It remains unclear whether the contamination of the original subsurface sand layer occurred during manufacture, transportation or when it was installed at the stadium. But what is clear is that the sand drainage lever failed. It was never tested correctly throughout those processes and its full replacement rectified the issue. Since rectification and rebuild, the drainage system and the playing surface has functioned and performed well in significant rain events and presents and plays well even at this peak load time of the season, so the rectification was successful. A number of specific matters have been raised by the committee which I'd like to address. Concerns have been raised at this committee and in budget estimates as to whether a SportEng report entitled Allianz Stadium Playing Surface Handover Assessment dated 22 August 2022 was supplied to the independent expert STRI in 2025 as part of their independent investigation, and whether it was intentionally omitted from our 5,000-word submission. STRI has since confirmed to the committee that the report was in fact provided by Venues New South Wales to assist their investigations. Further, Venues New South Wales reviewed that report for this inquiry and had regard to it in preparing our original submission, but didn't highlight it because, as we'd been advised by STRI at that stage, it was not material to the drainage issue, which did not emanate from the turf but the subsurface drainage. The SportEng report was a turf handover report to inform the maintenance regimen for the turf post-construction completion. It was based on an overall assessment of the turf and infiltration rate testing, which tests the movement of water through the turf layer. The report noted in relation to the turf that the turf health meets the required criteria. When the report was provided to Venues New South Wales by the builder by email on 25 August 2022, they advised the report shows that the pitch is in very good condition. Because the original turf was flood affected while being grown on the turf farm, this committee queried whether any residual silt in that turf may have leached through the drainage layers and caused the problem. However, SportEng's own evidence and STRI's independent investigations and assessment confirmed that was highly improbable based on the high silt concentration levels present in the sand. STRI have prepared a further technical note on this matter dated 11 August 2026, which I'm happy to submit to the committee for its assistance.
Thank you.
The committee also had queries as to whether maintenance practices or products could have been a cause. I confirm that Venues New South Wales adhered to the turf management maintenance plan designed by SportEng, engaged by John Holland. In any event, STRI ruled that out as a cause. The same highly experienced grounds team managed the SCG next door and 4 other elite sporting fields in New South Wales. Given the load associated with a highly diverse schedule of 500 sport and concert events a year, there are relatively few issues related to any of these fields of play, which is a testament to the commitment and experience of that team. I'd like to make a brief comment on SportEngine's technical note dated 20 February 2026, provided to the committee after the first hearing. SportEng was the builder's field of play designer as well as the advisor on our unsuccessful 2024 remediation works. The technical note focuses solely on their specification compliance and equates that with the adequate performance of the drainage system. Prior to the late 2025 rectification works being completed, the drainage system performed anything but adequately. Crucially, the technical note does not attempt to identify the root cause of failure and does not reflect the most compelling evidence available, and that is the actual performance of the field before and after full rectification in 2025. Secondly, the technical note presents averaged test results for silt content and drainage rates. There is no disclosure on the number of samples or the variability of results. Averaging results may mask areas of underperformance or higher levels of silt concentration. The technical note results also don't match the real-world performance of the Allianz drainage system. It's fine to produce averaged results that show the drainage rate met their specification, but as we all know, the drainage system failure at Allianz in Allianz Stadium in August 24 and May 25 is not theoretical or disputed. Independent experts STRI have reviewed SportEngine's technical note and prepared a response dated 29 May 2026, which I also submit to assist the committee. The final area I wanted to cover was turf procurement, for which a process is being conducted by Venues New South Wales, all in accordance with the New South Wales Government's procurement policy. Venues New South Wales published the open market tender for contingent turf supply in December 2024. That process was paused when the drainage issue occurred and while STRI's investigations were conducted. It has not been materially progressed since that time while this inquiry is on foot. Any turf procurement by Venues New South Wales in the interim is being conducted under the existing 2016 contract on foot with Evergreen and as required with HG Turf. After this inquiry is completed and its report published and reviewed by our procurement team, if any tender modifications are necessary, they'll be implemented and the tender can be reactivated and then finalised. It's an important procurement process as contingent turf supply for ad hoc repairs, patching and concert damage is one of the main consumables in our operations. We forward plan and budget for replacement based on forecast season loads and types of content. We require contingent turf reserves planted sufficiently in advance for use across the network to meet requirements as they arise. John Holland, the Allianz Stadium builder, ran their own procurement process for turf supply and appointed Evergreen to deliver and install it. John Holland were also the successful tenderer for the build of the new Penrith Stadium underway and have awarded the turf supply to Evergreen. Venues New South Wales has had no involvement in either of these procurements. Venues New South Wales did not install the original turf, sand and drainage system, nor did we assess it. It was in place when the stadium was handed over by Infrastructure New South Wales to Venues New South Wales ready for operation. At the time of handover from John Holland and Infrastructure New South Wales, which was within days of our first event, no concerns were raised by anyone about the field of play. In fact, the opposite was communicated. Having taken possession of Allianz Stadium in August, the magnitude of the problem first emerged 2 years later in August 2024. It transpires that as the high levels of silt and clay throughout the original sand profile bonded together over time, the drainage ability deteriorated, and by 2024, even 10 millimetres of rain in a short span could not drain through the system. Everyone involved in the construction of the stadium thinks the drainage issue is someone else's fault. The independent investigation showed that insufficient testing at the time of stadium construction was performed, and when it was done, incorrect testing methods were used. In the absence of that testing and relevant data, there have been a number of uninformed opinions on how and when the sand became contaminated. Since the entirety of the original sand material was removed and replaced in late 2025, the field has drained and performed as intended, and it performs as well as those at the SCG, Allianz Stadium at Sydney Olympic Park, Comback Stadium at Parramatta and elsewhere in the network, all managed by the same experienced Venues New South Wales grounds team. Finally, there are some key learnings from this matter. Firstly, to ensure when stadiums are built that the right tests are used to test the drainage system. And secondly, to ensure the drainage system components are tested and inspected at every stage of that process prior to and upon installation, and that there is full visibility of having done so. We have ensured these learnings have been provided to Infrastructure New South Wales for the construction of the new Penrith Stadium. We've also varied the scope of our existing open tender for contingent turf supply to include these updated, rigorous testing requirements. All tenderers have been provided with equal opportunity to amend and revise their tenders to reflect the revised scope. So I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to update you today.
And thank you for that opening statement, and also, if it's possible, on notice, Ms Mather, to submit the STRI report of the 11th of August that you referred to. Also, a copy of your comprehensive opening statement would be useful for committee members as well.
Thank you, Chair. I will do that.
Notice. Thank you.
Did you say you've got a copy of those reports to table now?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it possible to get a copy now so I can have a look before I question?
If we can do that during the course of the questioning. Are you able to table the STRI 11 August material now?
Yes, I can, Chair.
And there was one in May as well, I think, 26th May.
There's two of them, is there? One from May?
Yes.
Two new reports?
You referenced a second report that was provided in May.
The report for the response for the STRI response. Yes, I can table both of those.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, and we'll see if copies can be distributed to committee members before we wrap up.
This is a copy of the technical note dated 29 May 2026, which is a response to that note on your system. And this is the actually this should say we should put it along through that.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
If possible. If I can start the questioning, Ms Mather, and just get some updates. Is it still the position of Venues New South Wales that there's been no failure of the playing surface at Allianz? And if there has been, the reason for digging it all up over the new year and replacing it is the problem of contaminated sand?
Yes, actually, since the rectification was completed in 2005 at the end, or actually completed in January this year, it has, this drainage system is operating as intended.
Right. And can we get an update on who's paying for that complete rectification of the site that closed it for some 10 weeks? There's been no clarity for that for the committee.
Oh.
Who's paying?
Okay.
Or who has paid?
Yes, so the costs to date have been funded by Venues New South Wales, and a warranty claim is in process. Our commercial and legal people remain in active discussions with the builder of Allianz Stadium, John Holland. I don't want to jeopardise those talks, but I'm very confident the turf and drainage repair costs will be fully funded. So Venues New South Wales, and in turn New South Wales Government will have no exposure.
And what's been your outlay so far?
$5 million.
$5 million.
For that, the rectification just completed.
Okay. Are you aware of an inspection of the surface there 4 days before the opening of Allianz Stadium in 2022 by Jerry Spencer, who's the principal agronomist for Gilbert Solutions? And he was doing that on behalf of the NRL, one of the major users of Allianz.
No, I'm not.
No. He's provided, just like you provided fresh material from STRI, he's provided a 26-page report to the committee that's very comprehensive based on his experience as a 35-year agronomist for Gilbert Solutions. Do you know of Gilbert Solutions?
I don't.
No, well, they were commissioned by the NRL or on behalf of the NRL. He inspected the playing surface on the 30th of August 2022 an invoice the following day and paid. And his conclusions are very damning about the proposition that the sand was at fault. He's pointed out that the flooding at Windsor with Evergreen at their turf farm, that below the turf that's growing there's a plastic matting, which means that 3 or 4 serious floods, and I mean they were 4 or 5 metres underneath, the silt can only settle in the turf, is his conclusion. And on page 3 of his material that's been circulated to the committee, he concludes as follows: reinforced turf grown on plastic cannot shed flood silt before it is harvested, so it carries that silt to the stadium. The silt loading measured in the mat is enough to produce the infiltration rates measured at the stadium. The 2024 STRI testing showed drainage improving with depth, which locates the restriction at the top of the profile rather than the bottom. So how would you respond to that, he's basically saying your evidence to this committee is not valid?
I'd actually like to review the report, so if you don't mind actually providing a copy, we'd be happy to review and provide you with a
there's an appendix that's
comprehensive
confidential, but...
Chair, I believe the entire submission is confidential.
I don't understand that to be the case. I read it closely and he refers to Appendix A as confidential, but the rest of it's been circulated to us.
I think the committee resolution was to keep it confidential.
No, that was...
resolved that way this morning.
Sorry? Right, but has Jerry Spencer requested that confidentiality? Oh, okay. Okay, well, I stand corrected and I apologise. It's taken as confidential. But that general conclusion that I've provided, how do you respond to that? Is it your understanding that turf grown by Evergreen is on a plastic mat and it's not possible for silt to escape?
To the point of order. Oh, sorry, to point of order. I mean, and listen, you won't be pleased with my point of order. The witness has indicated would like to read the report to fully inform herself. Now, not a technical expert about the matter of multiple flooding and absorption of silt into grass. I think of plastic. I think, in fairness, that would be at best put as a speculative question, which I think, with the greatest respect to the CEO of Venues New South Wales, she's not an expert on such a matter.
Well, it's a matter of fact as to whether or not there's a plastic matting underneath the turf that's grown and the silt can't escape, which would inform us of the nature of the problem, wouldn't it? But I accept your point of order.
In fairness,
and Ms Mather, it's only optional for you to respond. If you have no response and this material is confidential, I apologise for my misunderstanding. I thought just Appendix A was confidential in my reading of it. It's optional for you to respond.
Look, I think it's... without reading the full context of the report, it's difficult to respond. But what I can offer is that the reports that were provided as part of the handover by John Holland and SportEng, their advisor, noted that the turf was satisfactory. In fact, they're in good health. Yeah,
so just my final question then, before I move to the Deputy Chair, is to ask about the STRI testing. My understanding is they've never had a sample from 2022. So wouldn't the committee be advised, in terms of the credibility of testing, that material from 2022 is the most reliable that's been tested, rather than something in 2024 where the silt may have leached down already into the sand, and that's the nature of that particular finding?
As part of their investigations, so we provided them with 500 documents and materials. They were... provided with whatever tests and drainage tests, sand tests, whatever tests have been done by the builder. But the 2022
Did they have actual samples from 2022?
Pardon?
Did they have actual samples from 2022? Samples of the surface?
Whatever test reports, whatever tests and reports were available. They weren't
no,
there,
not
of course,
reports, actual physical samples of what we're talking about.
Well, they weren't there in 2022. No,
okay, so that answers my question. So aren't we better advised to rely on the testing of SportEng, Gilbert Solutions and Green Space that actually go to the physical material tested in 2022 to know what was happening at the time of the stadium opening?
They were provided with, they reviewed all of the material that they were actually provided based on what
physical
tests
material
were
or
conducted. Reports, test results.
Okay. Well, the committee will make its own conclusion in that regard.
Can I just clarify a question in relation to that before you go to...
Yes.
So just in relation to that, Ms Mather, I will have a ton of questions later, but just in terms of those reports, I took our previous witnesses to evidence that was provided by STRI in the 20th of February session where I said to them, have you been provided the SportEng testing results, and would the clear advice in that report which says there is visible silt in the turf have made a difference to your potential recommendations and conclusions? And they said yes, it would have. So it's clear that they didn't review that material. Does that then provide you some question as to whether the STRI report is conclusive?
Just point of order.
I didn't
Point of
note-
order, Mr. Donnelly.
And I say this with greatest respect, February this year was a long time ago. You have paraphrased your questioning back then, and you've paraphrased your answer back then. I think the witness is entitled to see exactly what you posed and what was the response to what is essentially a paraphrasing of your question and the response.
Okay, well, to rule on the point of order, it's available to the witness to take it on notice once she's able to look at the material. And if I can just come back to Gilbert Solutions, this material that was sent to me, clearly in the first page it says the committee is asked not to publish Annexure A, but the body of this submission is offered for publication in full, and its argument does not depend on the annexure. So
Well, I'll
that
move
was
that
the
we-
nature of my misunderstanding.
I'll move that we release.
No, well,
No.
we can do that at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
We've dealt with that, and there was confusion, and,
Yeah.
and I've apologised for any misunderstanding, but I just wanted to clarify
No,
to the
no.
committee why I was proceeding the way I was. Ms Mather, we'll come back to the question from Mr Fang. It's available for you to take it on notice once you're able to look at the material that he's referring to.
Okay, I'll take it on notice.
Thank you. Deputy Chair John Ruddock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being with us, Ms Mather. We did hear earlier today about this issue of petrographic testing. The other tests that we've been doing have been looking at the actual composition of a certain sample, but the petrographic testing that we've heard this morning will actually tell us the origin of the silt and the clay, which I would think is the key issue of this inquiry. So, are you familiar with petrographic testing, and did Venues New South Wales consider conducting petrographic testing themselves?
I'm not an agronomist or a scientist, but my understanding is it actually tests the minerals actually in a sand. What we're talking about is drainage testing.
Yes. Well,
That's a different test.
Well, my understanding is the petrographic testing will tell us where this silt and clay has come from, and what it. So the earlier people in your seat earlier today were saying that this is the thing that they wanted the most, and in fact they said that they sent a team down to Allianz Stadium, and they were eager to conduct this testing, which would tell us the origin, which we wouldn't have needed to have had this inquiry had that petrographic testing been conducted. We would have had it all resolved. But we heard that your lawyers prohibited access so that we could not conduct that petrographic testing. Are you familiar with that?
I think you've raised a number of issues there. I think one of the issues that, or the key issue that STRI identified was that incorrect testing was actually done per the project brief, but also that insufficient testing was actually done through the process, which would have identified at what point you might have actually had an issue. So that's the first response to that question. In relation to the their inability to actually conduct tests or access the site, Moston Copper, who were the project managers running the full investigation in conjunction with STRI, didn't want any other subcontractors other than John Holland actually on the site.
Right. Well, I think that was an error. I mean, we could have. I mean, and it does. The fact that Dixon's and the other company were so eager to go and do this testing, which it does sound to me like it would have resolved this issue. Now, my final question before I hand over to Mr. Fang is, I'm assuming that there is no sample left from 2022 where we could go back and do this testing, and would that be accurate?
All of the testing that was actually available from that time was provided to STRI directly by the builder.
So it's possible they would still have a sample?
You'd have to ask them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Ms Saval?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Ms Mather, again for appearing before the committee.
Could you speak a little bit closer to the microphone? It's a bit difficult to hear you.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
If I can start by taking us back to 2022, when the issues with the drainage installation became apparent. Sorry, if I can start by taking you back to when those issues became apparent. Sorry. Can you talk the inquiry through, again, the steps that Venues New South Wales specifically took to respond to the drainage issues?
So back in August 2022, in particular following the Roosters Parramatta match, they contacted the builder's expert, the field designer and specialist, and Sport Eng, to actually examine the situation, and Sport Eng made recommendations on what needed to be done. They conducted their tests, and Venues New South Wales then sought to immediately implement their recommendations.
And in terms of the 2025 rectification project that's been undertaken and completed, would you say that reflects the kind of sort of rigorous lessons learned approach that the public should expect from Venues New South Wales when something doesn't go to plan?
Definitely. I think I tried to outline in my opening comments the level of rigour, and that just scratched the surface, but just to give you a sense of the level of rigour that was applied in every stage of the manufacture of the components of the drainage system through to its ultimate installation. So in particular around testing and inspection.
Okay. Can you describe for the committee what, if any, additional oversight and checks are in place now that Venues New South Wales has put in place since that 2025 project, and how that sort of reflects best practice?
Well, the first thing we did is actually make sure that that Infrastructure New South Wales had a full understanding for Penrith on the requirements that needed to be in place for that. We're on the steering committee for that, so we get some feedback on how that's all going. We know that through all the processes with the builder and their subcontractors, they've made sure that those processes are in place, but they've also engaged SDRI to do the full oversight of that process. And then internally, any of the procurements that we do, we've made sure that those rigorous testing methods are actually reflected in the procurement process and the specification requirements. And in the current tender that's underway, we've made sure that we have the option of procuring the sand directly or allow the turf supplier to do it.
Thank you. Since the rectification has been completed, could you update the committee on how the surface has been performing, if you've received any feedback from clubs or patrons or players of the like?
It's been performing well, and I think this time of the year is a really great test. We've had... in fact, I did seek some feedback from the sports, because the committee did ask me about whether I'd had any feedback. I think it might have been Mr. Bang from the sports, and so I've now sought it. So I can actually give you some quotes from the sports. Sydney FC Executive Vice Chairman Seb Gray said, "We've been delighted to notice the rectification of the drainage issue, and the state of field has caused no concern." The coach at Sydney FC, in his 3 games since the appointment as head coach, he's pleased to say been happy with how the pitch is played. Sydney FC captain, pitch quality at Allianz, particularly during the Wellington Phoenix Perth Glory games, has provided the best quality surface for football in the stadium in years. And that's high praise coming from Sydney FC. They have very high presentation standards. Waratah's coach Dan McKellar, the quality of the playing surface throughout the 26th season has been outstanding. Waratah's captain Matt Phillip, surface has been incredibly consistent week to week, even through wet weather, with excellent drainage and footing that allows us to play with confidence. Roosters Joe Kelly, fields always remain safe for our players. We appreciate the collaborative and solutions-focused approach throughout the remediation process. Trent Robinson, there's been a clear improvement in the playing surface at Allianz Stadium. Venues New South Wales has been positive throughout the process, demonstrating a strong commitment to delivering elite conditions for athletes into the future. Roosters captain James Tedesco. Love playing here. There's been a clear focus on continuing to improve the playing surface and overall player experience, and we're grateful for the commitment, delivering the best possible environment for players. So really positive feedback. In fact, I'm happy to provide that feedback to the committee, so if you're typing all that out.
If you'd like to table that?
Yes,
Yep.
I will actually.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Nothing from Will Walbrick? In the Roosters game, he brought up a huge divot and did his Achilles, and he's out for the season.
Thank you.
Is there any report on injuries like that that can be attributed to the playing surface?
No, look, it's we have thousands of players on our grounds
know.
every year.
I
So
know. But this was a no-contact injury where he brought up a huge divot.
look, it was unfortunate. A review was conducted of the injury, including with the Melbourne Storm.
It was, okay.
And confirmed his injury was unrelated to the turf.
Did he say that, or the club?
Sorry?
Did he say that as a player who's now out for the season?
Oh, they got his feedback as well.
Did they?
But
Okay.
look, I think
He's not blaming the turf.
no. There's been no, no commentator knows that the Storm NRL has attributed any blame to the Allianz surface. Sadly, Achilles ruptures are not rare in rugby league. The Storm's Xavier Coates suffered 2 this year, neither at Allianz. And the day after Will's injury, Raiders' Hudson Young had an identical injury at Canberra's Raiders Stadium. Canberra's
Yeah, what
GIO
struck me
Stadium.
as an NRL fanatic, it was unusual. It was a no-contact injury. No one touched him. It was just the divot that he brought up. But anyway, that's your evidence, so that's accepted. Ms Saval?
Thanks, Chair. In terms of Venues New South Wales, would it be fair to say that you have demonstrated a genuine commitment to transparency through this process and accountability in handling this issue?
Sorry, could you repeat
I said, would it be fair to say that Venues New South Wales has demonstrated transparency and accountability with regards to this issue?
Oh, look, I think I certainly we have provided a comprehensive response to this inquiry. I think we've been incredibly responsive to the drainage issue itself. We've been really rigorous in actually trying to chase down what the problem was and its rectification. But we've tried to provide as fulsome a response as we could to this committee.
And in terms of looking ahead, what level of confidence can you give the public that there are systems now in place that will prevent a similar issue that is arising at this or indeed at other venues in New South Wales?
I think I've got full confidence in our turf management, and the independent experts confirmed it was not a turf issue; it was actually a subsurface drainage issue. But we have taken every precaution to ensure to minimise any risk of any future issues.
And just a final one from me, Chair. Is there anything about how this was managed that you would point to yourself as a model for how other sort of major infrastructure issues should be handled?
Any infrastructure issues?
Yep.
Not just in relation to the drainage matter?
No, yeah. Just in terms of how this matter was managed.
I think this is, I think the introduction of the independent expert was a game changer. I think, there's many parties that have been involved in this issue, and, all of them are trying to protect their own interests, of course.
Yep.
And so, it's difficult to peel away the layers through all of that. But once the independent expert and a scientist and agronomist was actually brought on board, you could actually just cut through all of that and get to the heart of the problem. So I think that holds true really for any, infrastructure issue or any matter that you're working on.
Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Mr Donnelly?
No, thank you.
Mr Fang?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the testing results, Ms Mather. First question is why is it pen amended at the top to where 18th of June 2026 is crossed out and the 11th of August is penned in?
I don't know. I actually correct. It's a good point. Maybe my transcript needs correcting, but
I've checked your transcript. It says 11th of August.
I was provided with the letter yesterday, so
Okay.
I don't know. I think they might have overwritten another letter. I can only assume.
So STRI provided this to you yesterday. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you pen amend it or did they pen amend it?
I just pen amend it then.
You did.
Yes.
So you've written here the 11th of August and crossed out
Because
the
it was
the
provided to us
26th
yesterday.
or 18th of June, is it? Okay. So when was it received?
Yesterday.
Okay. Why is it dated June 2026 instead of August?
I don't know. They might have used an old draft.
Okay. Isn't that the first thing you'd get right if you were drafting a letter to table to an inquiry? The date?
I only just noticed it as I was handing it over.
Okay.
Dry gully, Wes.
Sorry?
Dry gully.
Well, I'm not sure it is, Mr. Donnelly, but anyway, we'll keep moving on.
Indeed.
We've heard from Elite Sand and Soil and Dixon Sand, who were the previous witnesses before you arrived, that they were refused access to test. Why was that the case?
Sorry. What did you say? You heard from
Elite Sand and Soil
Yes.
and Dixon Sands gave evidence prior to your appearance now that said
Thanks.
they had arranged for testing to be done at Allianz after they were blamed for the drainage issues. They had arranged with Johnny Neathol to arrive. They were on. They announced that they had arrived and were denied access to the stadium. Why did you stop them testing the surface so that they could demonstrate that they weren't responsible for the drainage issues?
Chair, just a point of clarification on this line of questioning. I believe it's useful, Mr. Fangford. I think we also heard from the witnesses that it was Moston Copper that denied them access. So I don't think it's fair to put this question to Ms Mather in the way that you've characterised
Well, Moston
it, that
Copper
it's
was
venues.
contracted to venues
My
in New South Wales.
understanding is that Moston Copper, and as we met with them at Allianz, they said they were contracted to
John
supervise, oversee the rehabilitation of the ground at the end of last year.
Yep.
And we know them also from the Rosehill Sale inquiry. So if they're acting on behalf of Venues New South Wales, commissioned by them,
Not sure
I think
that they were.
the question with that clarification is in order.
Thank you. Ms Mather.
I think I already answered that question, which was that Moston Copper were actually running the process, and they allowed access for John Holland, but not the subcontractors. So I can't answer it any further than that.
Can you take that on notice? Because we'd
Okay.
really like to know why Moston Copper, on whose directive, made that decision, given an earlier indication to both Dixon Sand and Elite Sand that it was possible to come and do that particular testing, and they drove all the way to Driver Avenue and were then told belatedly that they had to turn around. So I think to get to the bottom of that would be vital to the conclusions this committee reaches.
And can I just quickly add, Mr. Dixon from Dixon Sand, he said he described himself as flabbergasted when he said that he was denied access. So, because I think he very much wanted to get this sample so he believed it was going to exonerate him. So, flabbergasted was a strong word. So it is. Yes, I agree with the chair that it would be good to get that on notice.
On notice,
What
thank you.
happened there?
Mr. Fang.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Ms Mather, in terms of the conversations that you had with your grounds staff when the issue was raised in 2025, did you speak with Johnny Neathol about what had occurred in terms of the drainage issues and the conversations that he was having?
We had many meetings as a team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he indicate to you that he had been contacted by Dixon Sand and Elite Sand and Soil, and that they had denied that they would have been responsible for the drainage issues?
I don't recall.
He didn't indicate that to you at all?
No, it wouldn't have been a first order matter for me, but I can't recall.
It's not a first order matter for you that the supplier and the actual source of the material that the Premier stood out the front of Allianz Stadium and said this is responsible for a $5 million cost to rectify the supplier of that product, had indicated to one of your lead...
Been asked and answered, Quiz. Asked and answered.
Greg, shut up.
Come on, ask the question,
One of your, I'm just trying to think of the, what do they call the people that work on the surface of the horticulturalists anyway. One of your lead agronomists, had indicated that they had been contacted by the actual source of the material and indicated that it was not responsible. You didn't seek to actually find out any more about that.
We had extensive discussions as a team about this at the time. I'd have to go back and actually talk to him to actually and come back and respond to you.
Did he declare to you that he was a referee for Evergreen Turf?
I think they had put his name on their reference list without consulting him.
Well,
Okay.
this is an excuse that Peter Volandis and Graham Hinton have also used in relation to the Evergreen contracts at Racing New South Wales. Does Venues make any judgment about an outfit that fabricates its referees? Because there's a series of them now. We're talking Neofol, Lewis, Volandis, Hinton.
I think
In the tender document that's been furnished to you, I don't think any credible organisation would take seriously a tender from a body like Evergreen, which is just inventing without consultation who their referees might be, including two of your senior staff members.
I think I've actually dealt with this matter a number of times, both this committee and actually...
It's a very serious matter.
Well, Chair, if I can continue my...
I'm trying to get an answer as to the integrity standards of Venues New South Wales in accepting and acting on this Evergreen fabricated tender. Wouldn't you just throw it straight out?
I think our answers are on record already.
Well, can you repeat them here for the benefit of the committee? I'm questioning your integrity as the CEO in accepting this nonsense.
I think they had referred to, what do you call it? He has knowledge of them, so they, because they are a supplier in the
They're
organisation.
listed as referees without their permission. Who does that? 4 of them that I know of. No problem? Is that Evergreen tender still accepted and in the system, and has it been awarded?
My answers on this are already on the record.
Okay, we'll consult those, Mr. Fang.
Well, Chair, I've got some more concerns about this. If it's the case that one of the referees for Evergreen was made aware that the sand supplier was denying that they were responsible and that it could only have been one of 2 sources, in effect, for that silt from the reports that we've read, either the turf or the sand, and that person that was made aware by the sand suppliers is a referee for the turf supplier, isn't there an issue with conflict of interest, and shouldn't that have been raised with you?
Sorry, I'm not sure what your question actually is.
Mr. Neothol is listed as a referee for Evergreen. Now, Evergreen provided the turf, and Dixon Sand, through Elite Sand and Soil, provided the drainage material. Now, the silt must have come from one of those 2 places. Mr. Neothol was told by Dixon Sand and Elite Sand and Soil that they were not responsible and that they've got testing results to prove it. He didn't take that to you and effectively kept it quiet, and then refused access for them to test and prove that they weren't responsible. He's also listed as a referee for...
You've got to come to your question, Wes. We're not here for
You've just
speeches.
also made a series of statements.
No, there are assertions that the witness can respond to on these serious matters.
But there are
But
assertions
Does that... Okay.
Order. My concern as chair is that we get to a question.
Given those circumstances, are you concerned that Mr. Neothol did not raise and press that he'd been made aware by the sand suppliers that they were, 1, not responsible, and 2, had been refused access?
They were on different timeframes, but Can I just clarify that actually both tenderers included him? Both tenderers did. So we actually advised both tenderers
who's won the
that
tender?
they could not include them.
Who's won the tender? That's updated information.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, the tender was paused when this inquiry got underway.
Sure. Hasn't been resumed.
Hasn't been resumed.
What's your future intention?
Not materially progressed. So
What not materially progressed? What's your future intention with it?
we'll await the response, the report from this committee, and
Right,
we'll
okay.
consider that as part of the.
Thank you. Wes?
You've indicated that STRI was provided the documents, yet in the evidence that I referenced earlier, they indicated that they hadn't reviewed that 2022 document. Does that cause you to have concern in relation to the STRI report?
You might recall they provided a clarifying statement to this committee after their hearing on that day to say that they did receive it.
What I'm saying is that they've said that they didn't review it before writing the report.
Well, I don't know how they said it, but actually they did. And to your question about whether, I don't know whether you referred earlier whether they were aware that it was, that it had silt or was flood affected. Yes, they were aware of that too. And they referred to it in
well,
the
they gave
report.
evidence on the 20th of February. When I questioned them, were they aware that the turf had been silt affected? And they said no. Now, in those circumstances, does that then cause you to perhaps question whether the STRI report may not be complete?
Their report that was provided to us actually does refer to it. So it was a comprehensive report.
It refers to the fact that there was silt and that the turf was flood affected. Is that your evidence?
It did.
It did. Okay. We'll check that.
Two more questions.
You've
Mr.
indicated
Franks,
that the
right?
I think,
there was.
if I could just answer with one further clarification, the submission from them today actually further addresses that point.
Okay. You've indicated that there was incorrect testing methods. Have you correlated the testing methods that were specified in the contract with the main contractor and the subsequent subcontractors with that statement?
The misalignment is what was in the project brief, which is what was required to be in the specification, and it didn't find its way in there. So a different testing method was actually put in the tender specification to what the project brief required. This was a design and construct contract, so it was the contractor's responsibility to turn the project brief into a specification. That didn't occur. So actually that was one of the things that STRI identified.
Okay. So is it your evidence then that the contracted testing methods as specified initially when the contract was given for the D&C part was incorrect, or that they'd specified it in the actual construction contracts and that is incorrect?
I'm actually saying, I'm giving you what STRI have actually advised us.
No, but that's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you to break it down for me just so that I can better understand it and the rest of the committee can as well.
I can understand the answer.
It's probably a question.
Mr. Don.
Okay, we'll stop with the interjections and we'll get to the question. Thank you. We're running out of time.
Yes. So is it the case that the testing is incorrect or that they specified the wrong testing? Can you provide that answer, please?
It's both.
Sorry.
Specify the wrong testing and
can you
therefore
break
it's
that down for me a
incorrect.
little bit more, please?
Repeat the question.
Is it the case that the testing method was specified wrong or that it was articulated wrong in the contracts?
The wrong method was specified.
At what stage was it specified incorrectly?
In the specification.
Okay, last question.
In the specification for the D&C contract or the specification for the construction phase?
That's the same.
Well, no, it's not, because you indicated in your previous answer that the testing, it was a D&C by the main contractor, design and construct, and that the specification
Chair, is there a
that was.
question in this?
Yeah, okay.
Well, no, I'm trying to understand where the actual testing issue
Order.
is.
I'm not going to tolerate debate across the table. You'll come to the question, Wes, it'll be your last question because we're up against time.
Okay,
And
well,
we need to wrap
I'll
up.
review the answers in relation to that. The last question I've got is in terms of the retrospective warranty claim that has occurred. Now, in circumstances where Venues New South Wales has undertaken to complete the work themselves and then make a subsequent warranty claim to the main contractor, you've indicated that you're confident that the $5 million will be recovered from the main contractor in your questions by the chair. How are you able to make that assertion? What part of the contract are you relying on, and what is the evidence that you are, I guess, citing in terms of making the main contractor responsible for a retrospective claim?
I probably can't elaborate any further than I already have, because this is a legal matter now. But based on the status of those discussions, that's informed our confidence level.
Which
Okay, quickly, Wes.
Yes,
which conversations? What's occurred
With our legal team.
with your legal? But
Yes.
Okay, I think it's available to committee members for supplementary questions.
Sure.
And Mr Fang and others can take advantage of that. I just had a final matter, Ms Mather, under our procedural fairness rules. Both Dixon Sand and Elite Sand and Soil today have testified as to commercial damage that's been caused to them by the allegations levelled against them in this matter with Venues New South Wales. Does Venue find any reason to apologise and to discuss with the company restitution because of the damage that they've received? Would you like to review their evidence and take that on notice? Because it's a serious matter for them.
Yes.
I mean, the
Okay.
committee's had
I'll do
evidence
that.
of commercial damage that some of us might find as grossly unfair. If you can review their evidence and that material they presented about commercial damage and consider whether an apology and other restitution is appropriate for them in the circumstances.
Thank you.
That's okay, thank you. Thanks for your evidence today. And finally, can I just ask, in terms of the material you've tabled, your opening statement's a public document. The testimonials from the Chooks, the Waratahs and FC are public documents as well.
Yes.
And finally, the STRI document, originally dated the 18th of June and handwritten the 11th of August, that's headed technical note confidential. So are we to take that as a confidential tabling? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
we'll treat it that
And-
way and
and-
circulate
yeah,
it to
can I-
committee
can I
members
just-
only.
May I just clarify? I would like to clarify whether that, just in response to the committee's question as to the date of that letter, it was provided to me yesterday, so I assumed it should have been dated yesterday, but I'd just like to clarify whether it should be dated the 18th of June or whether it should in fact be
Okay, yeah, it's a
dated the 11th of August. So
two
if
months
that's okay.
discrepancy.
Sure.
So if you can take that on notice as
I
well.
will do.
And also the confidential technical note response to
Yep.
SE 10593 TNT 001, dated the 29th of May. That's also to be taken as confidential for committee eyes only.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. That concludes your... Is there another matter? Oh, you want it back? Okay. Stolen the
Gotta watch him.
secretariat
Gotta watch him,
document.
yeah.
Gotta watch him. We've learnt that.
They call me fingers.
See what he does
Thank you,
with
Ms
pens.
Mather, for your evidence, coming
you.
here twice. And our next step as a committee is to go to our report deliberation and finalisation with recommendations. So we thank you and all your staff at Venues New South Wales for the effort you put in to inform us of your perspective on this important matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ms. Mather.
Thank you.